Well, it was a carefully orchestrated diplomatic manoeuvre which wouldn't have looked out of place at the height of the Cold War. More than a dozen Russian spies traded for 4 Western agents at an airport on neutral ground in Austria. A handful of the Russians were then flown to a military base in the UK. The other 10 took a special flight to an airport in Moscow, from where Al Jazeera's Neve Barker sent us this report.
Taxiing after touchdown at Moscow airport. The plane carrying the so-called Russian spy ring arrives home. Hours earlier, this was the scene at Vienna airport. On the right, the Russian agents are escorted from an American plane. On the left, those accused of spying for the West leave the Russian aircraft. The swap is over in what's become the biggest spy scandal since the Cold War. As the 10 arrive here in the Russian capital, new questions are now added to the whole spy saga. Where will the 10 go next, and how will their uncertain futures pan out? On Thursday, each of the 10 Russian agents pleaded guilty in a US court. The judge sentenced them to the time they'd already spent in jail. All then agreed to leave the country within 72 hours. Shortly before their hearing in New York, the other half of the drama unfolded in Moscow. This man, nuclear researcher Igor Sutyagin, signed a confession this week admitting to spying for the US. He was moved to the Russian capital, issued a new passport, and according to his lawyer, deported for London. Sutyagin and 3 other Russians convicted of spying for the US and the UK are now reportedly on British soil. As the prisoner exchange was being put into action, Russian officials were keeping quiet.
I have no comments on this matter. The only comment we made was posted on our website. I can say nothing more.
American officials have also remained tight-lipped.
I'm going to refer all inquiry about this matter to the Justice Department.
The arrest came just days after the American and Russian presidents held a summit in Washington. Experts say both sides want to put the spy scandal swiftly behind them, but few expect the spying game to be over.
I don't think anyone in the United States or in Russia, I mean serious people, believe that this will be the end of it. These are 2 large countries with huge defense potentials. Even Israel has been spying on the United States. So how do you expect Russia not to spy on America if Israel is doing that, America's biggest ally?
The prisoner exchange comes amid hopes of a new era in relations, when both countries are eager to put, on the surface at least, old suspicions behind them.
Well, for more on this story, let's go live now to Washington and speak to Boris Korczak. He's a former double agent. He infiltrated the KGB, becoming an access agent for the CIA. Welcome to the programme. Thanks for joining us. You yourself know how difficult it is to adopt another persona. How difficult is it going to be for these 10 agents returning now to Russia to resume some sort of normal life?
Well, it will be difficult for couple of reasons. Number one, they got used to live in the West, which has much higher standard than Russia. Number two, they will go through a very long debriefing in Moscow, and that can be a painful and long process. And actually, and vice versa, it will happen also to 4 that came to the West. They will also go through the same process of debriefing and being, you know, interrogated, and they will have a lot to explain.
Lots to explain, presuming they actually satisfy the people who are debriefing them. They are then free to resume normal lives, are they? And how do they go about doing that?
Well, they will have to be resettled somehow. They will have to be given new identities, probably, or not. They will probably have to get some kind of assurance of financial assurances from the US or British government. Well, I went through this process myself, and unfortunately it did not happen to me. I was not reimbursed for my work for the CIA.
In your expertise, what sort of a spy ring was actually broken up in the US? From what we've seen and read, it didn't sound very high-powered, but could it have been?
Well, you see, Russians are extremely patient people. They are human, or human intelligence. We call it in the CIA, it's called human. It is working completely differently. They have time. It can take 10, 15, 20 years before their cell is ready to perform. So American intelligence is based right now more on technology, on satellites, which cannot hear what person A says to person B and vice versa. So I think that the old-fashioned HUMINT works much better. Americans jumped the gun, I think, arresting those 10 people. Because
I'm interested that
you really do not have a reason to arrest somebody who says he will steal an apple until he steals an apple. That's a good reason. So this group of 10 did not perform any intelligence gathering. They were preparing for that.
I mean, behind the scenes, I'm interested in the fact that the cell was broken up at this particular time.
As foreign agents in the United States and money laundering, which was dismissed by the court in New York. I think that the swap, spy ring swap, happened as fast as it did, because, you know, United States is rather, as much as Russia, they want to continue this warm-up conditions that exist between between Russia and United States.
Okay, Mr. Korczak joining us live there from Washington, D.C. I fear he may be having a little problem with his sound hearing us here in London, but we appreciate your time. Thank you. And still to come on the programme, the locked horns of tribal Sudan.